Okay, so I found this thing called Vulnerable API, which is very nice. And you ask them, why does it not check if you're the admin? Yeah, it just doesn't. The developer did not think of that. It's the kind of thing they might not notice. So this is incredibly simple. All you need is about 7 commands in Linux to install this thing, although the official instructions that came with it were wrong, which is the kind of thing you get used to these free things. But it's at a GitHub. If you go here, somebody wrote this and donated it to the world. And the thing I like about it is it's just one simple Python script. So you can easily run it on any system. So you can run your own. You don't have the problems of sharing ones that we're having with that other one. This is Vulnerable API. So all you have to do is have a Linux box or any machine with Python. Could be any operating system, I suppose, although I did it on Debian. And at the end, you run this thing. It runs the virtual API on port 8080. So I've got that running here. Okay. There it is. It's running Flask, and it's serving on port 8080. So I can load that in a browser, and I've got it loaded here. Okay, so if you load the URL, which is the URL of this box, the IP of this box plus 8080, then you'll get this, this response here. It's not intended to be a web server, but it does have this response which just tells you the status is running. So you can tell it's working. It's an API. It's not intended to be seen through a browser, but that's how you check to make sure you've found the right URL and your server is working correctly. So once you got it working, then you can import the specifications. This is another really nice thing. And let me go into my Postman. We're going to do this one with Postman. So here's Postman, and I think I'm just going to delete this old stuff. I think I have to. So let me delete this old stuff. All right. Cannot be recovered. That's okay. So the first thing is you can only import definitions if you make a Postman account and log in. So you'll have to do that. I just connected to my Google account. But you do have to, there's a create account button in Postman if you haven't logged in. And in the previous projects, we were using a scratch pad instead of a workspace. But this is a feature which they don't make you pay for it, but they make you log in. So after you log in, then up in the menu bar, it's off the screen here, of Postman, I go to Collections, and I can, in the main menu bar, oh, there should be an import window. Okay. Yeah, here's the import button. Okay. I hit import here. And now I can import things from a URL. And I'm in format Open API. That's what this guy uses, Open API. And let me show that to you on GitHub. If you look at his GitHub, he tells you that this thing has an OpenAPI 3 specification file. And here it is, OpenAPI vapi.yaml. So this is, you do not have to do what we did before, where you wander through the application and you find all the methods and rebuild them in Postman. It has documentation in machine-readable form that you can just import in a YAML language. So that's what you do. You import it from that URL. So let me check my instructions because I'm getting a little lost here. Okay, here's my instructions. All right, so when you import it, it's link. All right, there we are. That's what I want. Link tab. So now I put in the URL, and the URL just goes right to his GitHub. There. His GitHub vulnerable API raw main. This is the API from there. So I import it, continue, and I want to link it as a test suite, not documentation. That will load all these API things into all the requests into Postman so I can play them. And now I import. Okay, and it's done. They will show up in the sidebar in a few seconds. I had a Collections tab. Now it moved to the APIs tab, and I have this vulnerable API container. And that's a container called draft, and in here's vulnerable API, and here are the methods like create user, get user, uptime, display uptime, get token, and so on. So I don't have to like create these. It puts them right there for me. So that's handy. I was trying to find somewhere to shove this. All right, so now that I've done that, we can try doing things. Now, the first thing I have to do is I have to tell it where the base URL is, because it needs to be able to find my server. So I have to go get my URL to my thing here, which is this right there. I copy that, the URL that loads it in the browser, and now I go to this one, the one inside the draft container, and I go to variables here, and I'm going to create, there's a base URL variable, so let me get rid of this to make it easier. That current value, I'm going to paste in that stuff. So that is the value that goes to my API. And then I have to save it. Remember, this is a problem in this thing. You have to remember to save things, or it won't remember them. Okay, now I should be able to do things. So I have saved a base URL. So let's try to create a user. So to create a user, it's post base URL user. And in the body tab, I've got username and password. And notice something annoying about this. I think I can zoom in a bit. This thing is buggy. It puts extra quotes and backslashes on things so that it's not understood by Postman as JSON. If I try to beautify it, it won't beautify. So I have to clean this up. I have to get rid of these quotes on the outside, and I have to get rid of all those backslashes on the inside. It seems to be some kind of defect, as far as I can tell. It's either a defect in that guy's GitHub, or it's a defect in Postman's import process. And I imagine it's probably the GitHub. But anyway, if you clean up that way, now it beautifies. So now it's a valid JSON. Okay, so username and password, I could put in another username and password, but I'm going to leave it at that and send it. And I get a message, must provide valid admin token. So it accepted my request, but I'm not logged in as an administrator, which I need to be. So I went and looked at the instructions, and they just say don't start here. You're supposed to start by getting a token down here. So go to get token, and let me, okay, I'm going to get an authorization token. So here's a post to base URL tokens. It's a post, so the data is in the body, and the data is username, password, and again, it's got a bunch of extra characters I have to delete. Get rid of these outside quotes and those backslashes inside there. And there's even a \n here that shouldn't be there. There. If you know you succeeded, if it will beautify. Okay, so now I notice it gives me a default name and password, user1 and pass1. So I guess that's the account to use. So if I send that, indeed, I get an API token. So it tells me my user ID is 1, my name is user1, and here's an ID token. So I copy that token, and I tried putting that in the way we did before as on the auth tab here. I tried putting it in as a bearer token, and it wouldn't accept it. So again, I had to go back and look at the instructions. It's not a bearer token. You have to put it in manually as an XAuth header. But you can put it in a variable, which is what I did. I create another variable here and call it token. This is how you deal with something that Postman cannot easily handle, doesn't give you a special way to do it. You create a variable called token, and now in the request that I make, we're going to make an XAuth header. So we're going to go to, and once you have got a token, what they say you can do is create a widget reservation. You're reserving something, like a car or something. And so this is a post. You go to the body, and again it's got this junk, which I'll clean up later. But the thing I care about right now is the headers. There's the XAuth token, and here it has the placeholder, this is a token. That's where you have to put the token. So you put in two curly braces and token, and the other two curly braces, and we did this before. That's how you put in a variable. So that will fill in the token from the variable I defined earlier, and now I will be authorized as user 1. And now I have to fix the body just like the others. I have to get rid of these extra characters. So actually working from the keyboard might be better. Get rid of the backslashes and the extra quotes. And if it beautifies, it's good. All right, so now I'm going to reserve a widget name. And let's try that. And it tells me must provide valid token. Oh, you know what happened? I made the same mistake. I went here, I put in the token, and I forgot to save. Very easy to do in Postman. So now I saved that token. Now if I go here and send this, now I get illegal widget name. So the authorization was accepted, but the widget name is wrong, and the valid widget name is widget01. So that's in the instructions. Widget01. There we go. Now I can send that. Now I have created a reservation for widget01. So that's got that thing working. Now the next thing is you can get information about a user. Here. This is base URL user:user. And so you define the user here, and notice he fills it in with random chunk, anim, minim, just fills it with things. So you change the user to 1. Wait. On the headers tab, okay, first I have to put in my authorization. On the headers, I have to put in the curly braces token here. And then on the params tab, change the user to 1. Because I'm user 1. And you just want the number here, 1. Took me a while to figure that out. And then I send it. And now I get information about this user. I get their ID, name, and password. And I can only do it if I'm logged in. And I can check that. If I try to get the information for user number 2, it tells me the token and user do not match. So here, it seems to correctly check to make sure you've logged in. So this, we haven't hacked anything yet. We've just set it up in Postman so we can perform the API calls.